From taxi driver to text message, how to support your kids going off to university without smothering them. So we used to know everything about them, didn't we? We knew their friends' parents, what they ate, what time they got home. My goodness, we probably picked them up, didn't we? And now they've gone, or they're certainly going. You don't want to interfere, but even you don't want to disappear either. Hi, I'm Ashley Costello. I am the psychotherapist at The Resilient Kid here. Welcome back to the Resilient Kid podcast. This episode is for you, the parent, because while your child is, spreading their wings, going off to university, having that independence, you're adjusting. We're all adjusting. I'm walking this path with you this year. We're adjusting to a quieter kitchen, probably a cleaner kitchen, a half empty washing basket, a neat room, a role that we probably didn't sign up for. When they sign up for university, we don't think what happens is going to affect us as much as it's going to affect them. But let's be honest, this is hard. Let's call it what it is, right? You might be feeling lots of things. Pride, like, oh wow, how far have they come? Grief for the end of that daily chat at the end of the day. Worry, can they manage? Are they going to be able to cope living independently? Guilt, guilt for how you're feeling around this, because we want them to succeed, but actually we have got a little bit of that empty nest syndrome, and then also emptiness, especially if it's your only one or it's your youngest, things like that. Well, you know what? This is just a feeling shift. And the truth is, you deserve to have the space to feel it and recognize that this is going to be tough for you as parents as well. Dad once said to me when I was talking about this in a parent check-in, I miss hearing the door slam. And I never thought I'd say that. And this is not in the moment, in the temper. It was just as kids leave the house, or cars, and the doors slam because they don't realize, things like that matter. And so it's really important that we recognize that. So what can we do? Well, for me, it's around connection, keeping up that connection without controlling, without wanting to know where they are every minute of the day, recognizing that this relationship is evolving. You're no longer the manager. That's the difference. And if you think about that shift in the relationship, you're no longer managing their everyday things. You're no longer doing their washing, their cleaning, their ironing, feeding them, checking where they're at, picking them up. You're not doing any of that anymore. They're doing that for themselves. You're now shift from that role to a coach on the sidelines. So how do we do that? Well, let them lead. Let them be the one that messages you sometimes first. Now, I'm not saying all the time, all right, but resist the urge to check in every hour. Trust that when they're quiet, they're getting on with things. They're having a good time. They're doing an essay. They're making new friends. My God, they might even be doing their washing. Quiet isn't always bad. So if you're not getting something back, don't jump to that conclusion that something's wrong, all right? Also, think of, funny memes, different ways to connect with them so that it isn't always heavy. We have a family WhatsApp group. The hubby is always sending memes, a photo, send photos through. My eldest is coming up to 18, and we've actually started to look at old photos and stuff. Sending one of them through. Look how far you've come. Look how grown you are. A voice note is really good, and I do this for two reasons. One, because a voice note, they can do something else and listen. So they might be doing the washing or cooking tea and they can press play. They can also listen to you. Don't be offended, at a higher speed. Lots of the kids listen on 1.5 or 2. So it's quicker for them, which is great. Still they're listening. But also as well, the other reason why I think it's really good is because it means that If they send a voice note back, you can hear it. You can hear how well they're doing, what they're doing. You've got that connecting with them. A letter in the post, right? A postcard. Now, they might not admit it, but sometimes just something like that in the post is a really lovely way of just saying, I'm thinking about you, you know. Care parcels. I have spoken in the last 2 episodes, so we did a couple of episodes before these, so go back and check very practical things that you can do. And one of the things that I have kind of set up is like a little subscription for spices to be delivered. But also as well, if you see their favourite magazine or you see, their favourite treat, then just pop it in the post if you can. Do you know what I mean? To just, they don't, you don't need anything of them, but you're thinking of them. And if in that part time they've got an essay to do, or the kitchen's a mess, they've got washing to do, and they've still got a deadline, and things are feeling hard, to know that you're thinking about them, like, will really help. Really help. So, thinking around how to get connected and creative, whether it's, sending them a postcard of a picture of them, anything like that at all, little treat in the post, a text message, also as well, what I would say is get the wider family to connect in with them as well. So, something along the lines of they've got a deadline coming up, a friendly text wouldn't go amiss, because quite often with the wider family, they've got their own stuff going on, but also it's that out of sight, out of mind. And when they see you, they will always ask, won't they? Oh, how are they getting on at university? Are they enjoying it? Things like that. And that's brilliant. Why don't you drop them a text? Ask them, or yeah, they're doing all right, but I'm sure they'd appreciate a text. Or particularly like nanas or grandparents, they like doing letters, and the kids, they might not admit it, but they'll read it over and over. So I often speak to students, and it is these little things that are important. It's not, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that if they ring and go, I've got no money, can you buy me some shopping? Doesn't help, doesn't bail them out. Of course, they like that. But actually, the little things to know they've been thought of, because as much as you're feeling like you've got an empty nest, they're feeling that pull. Even if they're having a great time, they still feel that pull. And especially, I think when they move away, they don't realise that life goes on back in the house. That you're doing things with their siblings, or you're doing things with the wider family that they've missed out on because they've got an essay in, or they can't get home that weekend, or, things like that. So the little things. But also, as well, if you're in the supermarket and one of your friends has said, oh, how are they getting on? Drop them a text and go, oh, such and such a body was asking about you today. Just so that they know they're still being talked about, they're still being missed. It's really important to be creative around your connections and how you do it. Just bridge that gap between, them leaving but not leaving for good, keeping up that connection. Now, we talked about kind of how to do that connection without smothering them. But what if something doesn't feel right? When to step in? So, the things that I look for, because I often have students at university, and I can tell with kind of a little checklist, and I always say this to parents. So, these are the things I would look for if things are not feeling quite right. Personality shifts. Okay. So if it is that they used to text you all the time and suddenly they're not, check in why that is. All right. Listen to the language that they're using. I can't do this. I've messed up. That, very negative, down on themselves language, because that's important that we pick that up and that we reframe it. And if it's anything more than they're just struggling right now, what is it we can do? Now, don't jump in with I'll do this, we'll come and get you, we'll do that. No, there is a time and a place where if they are having a hard time and they just need a bit of TLC, of course, swoop down, pick them up, bring them home for the weekend, bring the washing. cook for them, send them back with a care package. Of course, do all that. But before we get to that, think about empowering them to help themselves, because we can't swoop in every single time. And I know there's somebody at the moment listening to this going, but we can. But actually, it's not helpful. It's not going to future proof them. So when we think around listening to that, I can't do this, I've messed up. Okay, well, what can you do? What's one thing you can do that will get you a little bit closer? What's one thing that will help you feel better today? What's one thing that might help you with that essay deadline? You know, I think we often talk about them being overwhelmed, and it's when they've got all the life stuff, the washing, the cooking, the cleaning, the shopping, the budgeting, on top of the socializing and the essays, the work, the turning up to lectures. Quite often what I will hear is, I've not been to a few lectures and now I'm behind. Okay, so what's one thing that you can do? Well, actually, I've got 7 lectures I've got to catch up on. Okay, so what's one thing you can do? Well, I could watch one and take notes. Okay, then do that. Just one thing. Like, it feels really overwhelming because the house is a mess. Okay, so what's one thing you can do that'll help you feel a little bit better? Well, actually, having clean clothes. Okay, so do that. Really think about empowering them rather than flying in and rescuing them. Another thing that I always look for when I'm thinking around what's shifted, what's not quite right, is radio silence for days with no explanation. Now, if it is, you've not heard of them, and then suddenly you do, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I had an essay to complete, or I've been out with such a body, or, we've just been having a good time, whatever that is, and you've got an explanation, that's okay. Like, fine, great, that's what we want, isn't it? We want them to be getting on with university life. It's when there's radio silence and then nothing, no explanation to why, that's a time that we need to kind of worry. Go with your gut. If it's telling you there's something off, trust it. But, and this is a but, approach gently. Don't jump in there, don't jump in the car and fly down. Something along the lines of, I notice you've been a bit quieter than usual. I'm just checking in. Now, they appreciate that. And you can follow it up with, like, you don't have to tell me everything, but I am here if you need anything, no pressure. Now, if you've got the kind of relationship where they do tell you lots of things, then brilliant, and they'll probably tell you anyway. But it's important for us to remind them that they can. All right? And also remind them that they can mess up. You still love them. We don't have to worry around adding any extra pressure. Don't add that. Just like, don't worry, we can sort it. If that does mean a weekend home where you do all the things and they get on with an essay, or if it means that maybe you visit and drop off a care package, I know of one family, and they'd kind of got in touch, and they said, like, they're really struggling, they're really worried about them getting behind, things like that. I don't know what to do for the best. And I said, do you know what might really help? And knowing what this student was going through is just to slip in unnoticed and clean the house while they're out. And that's what this mum did. And they came home, and not only did she have the gratitude of her own kid, but actually the other kids that lived there as well. Now, I'm not saying that we should be doing that, but if there's one thing that we can do that just makes our life a little bit easier, in times of stress, I'm not on about the first week in, but in times of stress that we can help with, whether it's send them a shop, whether it's going to clean the house, whether it's, sending them a card, anything like that, that would just brighten the day a little bit, then if we can do it, why would we not? Why would we not? The other thing that kind of, I guess, a heads up, things will change. Things are going to change between you. They're going to come home with new ideas, new thoughts, new opinions. possibly a new tattoo, stay curious. Stay curious. Yeah. Don't be critical, like, oh, what have you got that for? And also, it's really funny. I've had the conversation around tattoos a few times with parents, and I go, okay, so you getting really angry at it, what do you think that's going to change? Well, nothing, because it's permanent. It is. So, what is the point of you getting angry? And also, guess what? It's their body and it's their choices. And it's a choice of whether they, suffer the consequence because they don't like it in a few years, or whether they love it forever. But what I would say to you is, it is their body. If, tattoos or piercings or anything like that is something that you fundamentally disagree with, then have that conversation before they go. But what I would say to you is, it is ultimately their body. All right. And it's our job to stay curious, and it's their job to figure out who they are outside of the family unit. And if you are wise and if you are curious, they will teach you. And allow them to disagree, because you will see these new found opinions are not forever. They are a fluid learning. And how lovely that you and us as parents get to witness them as this individual taking flight. This very small person that you used to pick up in your arms is now across the dinner table having debates with you that is a surprise and probably completely different sometimes than, the way that you raised them. But actually, how lovely we get to witness this. And that's what I'd say to you is, be the witness, be curious, let them teach you. You might just learn something. You might just learn something. And actually, remember, just because they're learning to live without you doesn't mean they don't need you anymore. They still do. They always will. It's just a different relationship now. And the more curious you are, the more that you hold space. And that's not saying that you have to agree with them, but the more you hold space around your table for them to come in and out with their opinions and tattoos and the hot and new relationships, then the more they will come home. And the more that they'll still feel they belong. And so for me, it's fundamental that as the parent, we are really open to this new development, to being the witness. Because after all, isn't that what we're here for? Aren't we here to grow an individual, a real life human being that flies the nest? That's what we're here for. And it's hard. It is hard. But what I would say to you as we close, this is my reminder to you. You haven't become less important to them. You've become the constant in whatever is going off at university, or maybe, they might have gone on an apprenticeship and it's further away, but you are that constant for them. In whatever chaos is going on in their life, you will be the constant. You're the voice they hear in their head when things go wrong. The place, if you allow that holding of space, that curiosity around new opinions, new relationships, new ways of doing things, you will be the place they come back to when they need peace. And that postcard, that care package, that clean washing dropped off will remind them of who they are and who loves them very much. So, as I draw this to close, I hope this has helped. I hope this has kind of held space for you for all the feels that you're going to have, all the worries, concerns, etc. And hopefully giving you a little bit of a guide. As I walk this journey with my eldest, I'm walking this with you as well. So I hope that this has really, give you some food for thought and go, it's okay to feel like this. It's okay. If it's helped you, then please share it. Don't forget, this is a change for all of us, and it will stretch, it will grow. And as long as there's love and curiosity there, we'll all be fine, I'm sure. Take care. Lots of love from me and mine to you and yours.